The galaxy was old, older than most remembered. Thousands of civilizations had risen and fallen under its silent stars. Worlds of light floated across the void, each holding its own dreams, stories, and fears. Among these stories, one name kept returning again and again, passed down through generations, wrapped in wonder and disbelief. They were called humans, the children of Earth. No one alive had ever seen them. To most species, they were just a tale from ancient times, a myth told by elders to their young. The stories spoke of a strange species that once walked on a blue world called Earth, far from the galactic core. These beings, it was said, could breathe air full of poison, survive worlds of ice, and live under suns that burned red or gold. They could adapt faster than machines, and their hearts burned with something called hope. To many, the stories were comforting. To others, they were foolish dreams. Across the stars, the Galactic Union ruled peacefully. For hundreds of years, the Union had kept balance between species: the Arcsani, the Tyron, the Vishari, the Lunan, and many others. Together they shared knowledge, technology, and culture. Wars were rare now. The galaxy had grown quiet, until the silence broke. From the dark between galaxies came the Valar Swarm, a race of machines without mercy or emotion. They consumed energy and matter alike, spreading like shadows over everything they touched. Planets fell one after another. Fleets vanished into the black. At first, the Union thought they could win easily. They sent warships, fleets, and weapons. But the Valar were not ordinary machines. They learned quickly, adapting to every attack. Energy shields became useless. Plasma torpedoes lost their power. Every defense failed, and every victory turned to loss. In less than 10 years, the Union lost 200 worlds. Millions of lives disappeared without a trace. Fear spread faster than light. The proud species of the Union began to lose faith. Admiral Kale Ren Voss of the Arcsani species stood before the grand map in the Union command hall. His blue skin reflected the light of the holographic stars. His golden eyes watched as more systems turned red, one by one, as the Valar spread. "We have no pattern," said his second-in-command, a Lunan officer with soft silver skin. "They appear anywhere, destroy everything, and move on. They do not speak. They do not stop." Kyle's voice was calm, but inside he felt the same fear. Then we must find something they do not expect. But deep down, he wondered if such a thing existed. For months, Kale and his fleet searched the far edges of known space, looking for anything, a weapon, a signal, a forgotten technology. And one quiet day, while scanning the cold edges of the Orion Rift, something strange appeared. It was a signal, weak, old, but repeating. Kyle ordered it played through the ship's speakers. The sound that filled the command bridge was odd, a pattern of beeps and tones. It wasn't any modern code. The computer failed to identify it. "Origin?" Kale asked. The technician hesitated. "Unknown, Admiral, but the frequency is extremely old. Records say it matches pre-Union transmissions, maybe even from before our calendar." Kyle frowned. "Before the Union? That would be more than 20,000 years. The technician nodded. "Yes, sir." And the message repeats in a pattern, something like Earth Beacon 04. The room went silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then one officer, older and tired, whispered, "Earth, that name? It's from the old stories." Kale remembered those stories. His mother had told them when he was young, about humans who faced storms, monsters, and war, and always found a way to survive. He had never believed them. Until now. "Prepare a small expedition," he ordered quietly. "We follow the signal." The fleet moved through the rift where light bent and sensors failed. The stars here were cold, forgotten. And there, orbiting a dim red dwarf star, they found it. A planet, gray, scarred, covered with broken satellites and old metal. Around it drifted a single ship, small and silent. Its hull was damaged and ancient, built with materials the Union hadn't seen in ages. The ship carried markings, strange letters faded by time. Kale leaned closer to the hologram. The letters read, UHS Valiant. They tried sending a standard Union greeting. No response. They tried again, switching to old communication formats. After a few tries, a weak voice answered. "This is Captain Mira Jensen of the United Human Ship Valiant," the voice said. "Identify yourselves." The bridge crew exchanged stunned glances. The voice was firm, steady, and definitely human. Kale took a breath. This is Admiral Kale Ren Voss of the Galactic Union. We are responding to your distress signal. There was a pause, then a soft laugh over the comms. Galactic Union? I didn't know we had neighbors anymore. When the human ship opened its hangar bay, Kale's team boarded carefully. Inside, they found a crew of men and women, pale, weary, but alive. Their uniforms were simple, their tools old. Yet their eyes were sharp, full of life. Captain Mira Jensen greeted them with a small smile. She was tall for her kind, with brown hair tied back and eyes the color of storm clouds. "So," she said, looking around at the alien faces, "you really are real." Kale tilted his head. "We could say the same. We believed humans were a myth." Mira chuckled softly. "That makes two of us." They sat together in the ship's meeting hall. The humans explained their story, how Earth's colonies had been cut off from the rest of the galaxy long ago, after a cosmic storm destroyed the old networks. Many colonies perished, but some survived in silence, building new lives on forgotten worlds. For centuries they had lived quietly, rebuilding ships and exploring in secret. The Valiant was one of their few remaining vessels capable of deep space flight. They had been searching for other survivors when the Valar appeared. When Kale described the swarm and its destruction, the humans listened in silence. Their expressions changed from calm curiosity to concern. Mira folded her hands. "Machines that learn and consume. We faced something like that once, long ago. It almost ended us." Kale raised an eyebrow. "And how did you survive?" She smiled faintly. "We adapted. That's what humans do." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Kale could feel it. The same energy his mother's stories had described. A stubborn, burning will to live. Later, as the Union scouts helped repair the Valiant's systems, they observed the humans at work. They had limited tools, yet they fixed engines that others would call lost causes. They climbed into narrow ducts, used scraps as spare parts, and made everything function again. To the aliens, it looked like magic. To the humans, it was just another day. When the repairs were complete, Kale invited Mira to join a Union Council meeting through Holo Connection. The alien leaders were cautious but curious. Some doubted her story. Others were simply amazed. Mira spoke with quiet strength. "You may not know us, but we remember the stars. We came from a small blue world called Earth. If your enemy threatens life itself, then we will stand beside you." The council members exchanged looks. One of them, a Vishari scholar, asked, "You would fight a war that is not yours?" Mira's reply was calm. "If we stand by while others fall, we lose what makes us human." There was silence. Then Kale spoke softly. Perhaps the myths were true after all. Outside the window of the Valiant, the stars shimmered quietly, as if they too were listening. Somewhere far away, the Valar swarm continued to spread, unaware that something ancient, something once thought gone, had returned to the galaxy. And for the first time in many years, Admiral Kyle felt a spark of hope. The children of Earth were real, and they had just arrived. The arrival of humans shocked the Galactic Union. For generations, they had been no more than bedtime stories, symbols of courage and mystery. Now, standing in the council chamber through the shimmering holo display, was Captain Mira Jensen, a living proof that myths could breathe again. The chamber itself was grand, a circular hall filled with hundreds of alien delegates. Some had scaled skin that glimmered like crystal. Others had long limbs and eyes that glowed faintly under the blue lights. At the center floated the Union crest, a ring of stars united by light. Admiral Kale Ren Voss stood near the holo emitter, introducing Mira and her crew. The delegates murmured among themselves in disbelief. Their voices mixed in dozens of tones and languages, forming a low, humming cloud of doubt and wonder. "The children of Earth have returned," Kyle said firmly. "They bring with them knowledge lost to time, and the spirit our galaxy has forgotten." A tall Vishari scholar raised one of her translucent hands. "Admiral," she said softly, "how do we know they are truly from Earth? Stories are full of imposters." Kale gestured to Mira. "Show them." Mira smiled calmly. From her pocket, she placed a small metallic emblem onto the holo surface. It projected a glowing blue image, the ancient symbol of Earth, a circle of blue and green wrapped in white clouds. Along its edge were old words written in a lost language. The Union's translation system struggled to read them, but the words slowly appeared in the shared tongue. United Earth Federation. Gasps filled the chamber. Many had seen that symbol only in ancient archives that no one could verify. Yet now there it was, real and shining before them. Mira looked around the hall. "We may be few," she said, "but our hearts remember home. We left Earth long ago, but we never forgot where we came from. If your union fights for life and freedom, then we will stand beside you." The room fell silent. Even the most logical species felt something deep stir inside them, a quiet awe at the human's presence. Finally, the Grand Chancellor, a calm being of light named Auron, spoke. "Captain Mira Jensen, on behalf of the Galactic Union, we welcome humanity back among the stars." A soft cheer spread through the chamber. The myth was alive. Later, the UHS Valiant was escorted to the Union's central dockyard above the world of Virelian Prime, a glittering city world filled with towers that reached into the clouds. The dockyard was massive. Thousands of alien ships in repair, refit, or construction. The human crew stood in awe. To them, these ships looked more advanced than anything they had seen in centuries. Smooth energy cores, curved hulls, and plasma drives glowed under silver-blue lights. But when the engineers of the Union met the humans, something unexpected happened. The aliens thought humans would need help understanding modern systems. Instead, the humans began fixing problems the Union engineers had ignored for years. "Your coolant lines are inefficient," said Chief Engineer Ramirez, crouched under a Tyran power conduit. "You're losing 12% of your energy here. If you just reroute it through this secondary grid," the Tyran engineer blinked all four eyes in surprise. "That should not be possible. The flow regulators would," Ramirez smiled, "would overheat, right? Not if we use adaptive cycling. Watch this." Within minutes, the old human repaired the system with nothing more than basic tools and a steady hand. The power output rose by 15%. Around the dockyard, stories spread like wildfire. The humans worked fast, thought differently, and never seemed to give up. They mixed creativity with logic, turning even broken machines into useful tools. Union officers began watching them closely, learning their strange but effective methods. The humans' ideas inspired them to improve their own technology. Soon the Valiant was surrounded by curious visitors from every corner of the Union. Some came to see the legendary humans. Others came to learn from them. Captain Mira welcomed them all kindly. "Knowledge grows when it's shared," she said. "We don't bring answers, Wyke. We bring questions that make answers possible." A few weeks later, Admiral Kale invited Mira to his command center to discuss strategy against the Valar swarm. The holographic map showed a sea of red dots, worlds that had already fallen. "They move like a tide," Kale said quietly. "Every time we strike, they adapt. Our weapons lose effect within hours." Mira studied the map. "You're fighting them like soldiers," she said softly. "But they aren't soldiers. They're patterns, machines learning from rhythm. You need chaos." Kale frowned. "Chaos?" Mira nodded. "Unpredictability. Random action. Human warfare was never about perfect order. It was about adapting faster than the enemy." Kale looked thoughtful. "Can your people help us train for that?" She smiled. "Give us a fleet. We'll show you how humans fight." Within days, a small task force formed, a joint fleet made up of humans and various Union species. They trained together in a massive empty sector known as Deep Verge, far from any inhabited worlds. At first, the training was chaotic indeed. The alien crews were confused by human tactics. Humans didn't follow perfect formations. They used uneven movements, irregular signals, and strange maneuvers that made no sense at first glance. When an Arxani commander questioned them, a human pilot named Lieutenant Harris laughed. "You can't predict a human move," he said. "That's the point." During one simulation, the human pilots lured the AI enemy ships into a trap using decoy signals and old satellites as false targets. They used damaged drones as distractions, fake distress calls, and broken asteroids to block enemy sensors. It looked messy, but it worked beautifully. When the simulation ended, the Union officers were stunned. For the first time, their side had defeated the AI opponent in record time. Admiral Kale smiled proudly. "Perhaps the legends understated your creativity." Mira crossed her arms with a faint grin. "We call it improvising." The joint training continued for weeks. The aliens slowly learned to adapt, not to follow rigid orders, but to think for themselves. The humans encouraged them to experiment, fail, and try again, It changed everything. Even the most disciplined fleets began to loosen their patterns, and soon, the Union forces started performing better in real battles too. Reports came in, small skirmishes ending in Union victories. The Valor were not used to enemies who changed their tactics so quickly. Meanwhile, Mira's crew shared stories of Earth with their new friends. They told of oceans, forests, and skies full of color. They described human struggles and how they had always found strength in unity. The aliens listened with wonder. The concept of hope, something humans carried deeply, began to spread through the fleets. Soldiers started painting the old Earth emblem on their armor. Pilots wrote Earth's children on their ships as a symbol of courage. Where once there had been fear, now there was belief. Admiral Kale noticed it everywhere. The simple presence of humans had changed the spirit of the Union. Crews smiled again. Commanders spoke with confidence. And every time they prepared for battle, they said the same words. We fight with the children of Earth. But not everyone was certain. In the Union Council, a few leaders whispered doubts. They are too bold, said one. Too unpredictable, said another. If they turn against us, who could stop them? Chancellor Oren silenced them gently. The Valor destroy all without question. The humans save without asking for reward. We must trust in what they represent. Even so, some feared what humanity might awaken in the galaxy. Not destruction, but change. One quiet evening aboard the Valiant, Mira stood at the observation window, watching the stars drift by. Admiral Kale joined her. You've done something no one else could, he said softly. You gave us hope again. Mira smiled faintly. Hope is a weapon too, Admiral. Stronger than fire. Kyle looked at her thoughtfully. The Valar won't stop. The next attack will be greater than before. Mira nodded. Then we'll be ready. You've taught us about unity, and we've shown you how to fight without fear. Together we stand a chance. The two leaders watched the stars in silence. Somewhere in the darkness, the Valar swarm gathered its endless fleets, preparing for another strike. But this time, the galaxy was not trembling, because the myths had returned, and humanity was teaching the stars how to fight again, not with hate but with heart. The galaxy had begun to change. For the first time in many years, the fleets of the Galactic Union did not retreat when the Valar swarm appeared. They stood their ground. They fought back, and wherever they stood, humans stood beside them. News spread like light across the stars. The old myths had returned. The children of Earth are real, people whispered on every world. They fight beside us. From the smallest mining colony to the shining cities of the core worlds, those words brought strength to tired hearts. The Valar had been feared for so long that the idea of hope had almost vanished. But now, even hope had a name. Humanity. Captain Mira Jensen watched the reports from her ship, the UHS Valiant. Dozens of planets had sent messages of thanks. Civilians built statues of human figures beside alien heroes. Some even sent songs across communication channels, soft melodies about courage and unity. But Mira knew the war was far from over. The Valar were learning again. Every battle they lost, they studied. Every weakness they fixed. It was only a matter of time before they returned stronger. She stood by the main screen, her reflection faint in the glass. The stars drifted slowly beyond, peaceful and silent. Too silent. Peace never lasts long, she murmured. Admiral Kelrin Voss appeared on the display. Captain Jensen, the Union High Command has a mission for you, he said. We've detected strange activity near the Taraxis belt. We believe the Valar are building something. Mira frowned. Another swarm base? Worse, Kyle replied. A power collector the size of a moon. If they finish it, they could destroy half a sector with a single blast. Mira nodded. We'll go. But we'll need a mixed team. Human engineers, Union pilots, and Lunan navigators. Kyle agreed. You'll have everything you need. Be careful, Mira. The Valar have started adapting to our joint fleets. You'll be walking into danger. She smiled faintly. When aren't we? The mission began within 2 days. The Valiant led a small task force, 12 ships, half human, half Union, half. Among them were Arxani cruisers, Vishari scouts, and a single Tyrant battleship. Each ship carried its own culture and style, yet they worked as one. That was humanity's greatest strength. Not just their courage, but their ability to unite what was once divided. Inside the command room of the Valiant, the crew prepared for the long journey. Chief Engineer Ramirez checked the ship's modified engines. "We've pushed them past safe limits," he said, wiping his hands. "Let's hope they hold." Lieutenant Harris grinned. "Don't worry, Chief, she'll hold. She's human-made." Ramirez chuckled. "That's what I'm afraid of." Their laughter lightened the tension. Everyone on the ship knew how dangerous the mission was, but they faced it with steady hearts. As they reached the Taraxis belt, a field of glowing asteroids filled the screen. The rocks sparkled with strange blue light, natural crystals charged with energy. In the center of the belt floated something enormous, a dark structure that pulsed like a heartbeat. It was the Valar Collector. Mira narrowed her eyes. "Begin scans." The data came back quickly. The structure was absorbing power from the asteroids, converting it into a form of energy none of them had ever seen. If it reached full capacity, the explosion would tear through nearby systems. Kale's voice came through the channel. "Destroy it if you can, but be careful. We've lost every probe we sent." "Understood," Mira replied. The Valiant and her allies moved silently between the asteroids. The human pilots flew their fighters like dancers, weaving through narrow gaps that no computer-guided craft dared to enter. The alien pilots watched in amazement. Their precision and bravery were unmatched. "Humans are crazy," muttered a Tyrant pilot over the comms. "Clun." Harris laughed. "Maybe, but we get the job done." When they were close enough, the fleet launched its first attack. Bright beams of plasma and kinetic shells struck the outer surface of the collector. The explosion lit up the belt, but when the light faded, the structure still stood. Then the Valar arrived. Black ships poured from hidden tunnels in the asteroids, hundreds of them, their forms sleek and silent. The enemy fleet moved with perfect coordination, no hesitation, no fear. Mira's voice rang through the comms. "Stay together. Don't let them separate us." The battle began, the sky filled with light. Human and alien ships fought side by side, firing in every direction. The Valar's precision was terrifying, but the humans' unpredictability balanced it. A Vishari scout ship was hit and began to spin out of control. Without thinking, Lieutenant Harris flew his fighter between the enemy fire and the falling ship, using his own craft as a shield until the scout could stabilize. When Harris returned to formation, his wingmate shouted, "That was reckless." Harris replied with a grin, "That's what makes it fun." Even in the chaos, humans smiled. They fought not because they loved war, but because they refused to give in. Inside the Valiant, Chief Ramirez studied the readings. "Captain, the Collector's shield is too strong. We can't break it with weapons." Mira thought quickly. "What about the asteroids? They're full of energy." Ramirez's eyes widened. "You want to use them as bombs?" She nodded. "If we trigger a chain reaction, we might overload the Collector's core, but someone has to go in and plant the charges manually." Ramirez looked at her. "That's suicide." Mira met his gaze calmly. "Not if we're fast." A silence fell across the bridge. Everyone understood what she was asking. Finally, Lieutenant Harris spoke. "I'll do it, Captain. I'm the best pilot we've got." Mira shook her head. "No, you're too valuable out there. I'll go." Kale's voice came through suddenly, sharp with concern. "Mira, what are you doing?" "Ending this," she replied. Wearing a reinforced suit, Mira entered a small shuttle and flew into the asteroid field. The Valar's ships ignored her at first, focusing on the main fleet. She used that chance to slip between two glowing asteroids, landing on one of their surfaces. The rock vibrated under her feet, humming with power. Carefully, she placed the first energy charge, then another, and another. Back on the Valiant, Ramirez monitored her life signs. "She's moving fast," he muttered. "Faster than I expected." The fourth asteroid shook violently as a Valar drone approached. Mira hid behind a rock and waited. When it passed, she finished placing the final charge. Her voice came through the comms, calm and steady. "All charges set, detonate on my signal." Kale's voice was tight. "Get out of there first, Mira." "Negative," she said softly. "If I leave now, they'll intercept me. I'll trigger it from here." She looked out at the stars, so vast, so silent. In that moment she thought of Earth. She thought of the blue sky, the green forests, the laughter of children. "This is for all of us," she whispered. Then she pressed the trigger. A chain of explosions lit up the Taraxis belt. The asteroids burst one after another, releasing waves of light that merged into a storm of energy. The Velar collector glowed white, then shattered apart. The blast spread outward like a sunrise, pushing back the darkness. From the Valiant, Ramirez shouted, "We've lost her signal." Kyle's voice came through, heavy with emotion. "Pull. Back, everyone, pull back!" The fleet retreated to a safe distance. For a few long moments there was only silence. Then a faint signal appeared, a tiny blip on the radar. "It's her," cried Harris. "She made it!" The bridge erupted with cheers as Mira's small shuttle emerged from the debris, damaged but intact. The entire fleet saluted her as she docked. When she stepped onto the deck, her crew gathered around her. Ramirez's eyes were wet. "You're insane," he said, smiling. "Maybe," she said with a tired grin. But it worked. The destruction of the collector became a legend almost instantly. Across the galaxy the story spread, how the humans had faced the impossible and won through courage and creativity. For the first time, the Velar had been defeated in a major battle. Admiral Kale stood before the Union Council, his voice filled with pride. "The children of Earth have done what no one else could. They have given us more than victory. They have given us belief." And somewhere aboard the Valiant, Captain Mira looked out at the stars once more. She knew the war was far from over, but she also knew something had changed. The galaxy no longer saw humanity as a myth. They saw them for what they truly were: dreamers, fighters, builders of hope. And as long as hope burned, the light of Earth would never fade. The galaxy waited with bated breath. The Velar swarm, wounded but not defeated, had regrouped. Their numbers were larger than ever, stretching across the outer Perseid frontier like a black river of stars. Entire sectors had already fallen, and every attempt to stop them had cost lives. The Union fleet assembled near NetNarrator, a gas giant with swirling orange clouds. It was the perfect location to intercept the swarm. Thousands of ships, human, Arxani, Vishari, Lunan, and Tyron, gathered together, forming a massive armada. Every captain knew what was at stake. Admiral Kael'ren Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the formation before him. "This is the greatest battle we've ever faced," he said, his voice steady but firm. "We cannot fail. If we do, the frontier will fall and the swarm will continue toward the core." Captain Mira Jensen aboard the UHS Valiant stood nearby. She studied the radar, noting the swirling mass of the enemy. "They're not attacking yet," she said quietly. "They're waiting, learning." Kale nodded. "They always do. But we are ready, especially with you and your crew here." Mira's eyes were calm, but inside a spark of determination burned. "We don't fight like them," she said. "We don't rely on fear or numbers. We rely on each other." The silence broke as the first swarm ships appeared. They moved like shadows across the stars, sleek and unyielding. The Union fleet opened fire, bright plasma beams cutting through the darkness. Explosions lit the void, reflecting off the orange clouds of NetNarrator. The humans' tactics were different from the Union's. They flew in unpredictable patterns, weaving between asteroids and abandoned satellites. The alien pilots watched in awe as human ships dodged attacks that would have destroyed the most advanced fleets. Harris led a squadron of human fighters, darting into enemy lines and drawing fire away from larger ships. "Remember," he shouted over the comms, "don't follow orders blindly. Think, adapt, survive." An Arxani commander hesitated at first. Their species relied on perfect formation and strategy. But seeing Harris's squadron split and regroup in ways no algorithm could predict, they realized the humans' way worked. Slowly, the Arxani and Vishari began improvising, taking risks they would never have considered before. Inside the Valiant, Chief Engineer Ramirez monitored energy levels. "The swarm is adapting fast," he said, fingers flying over the controls. They've learned our attack patterns in under 5 minutes, Mira nodded. Then we changed the pattern faster than they can learn. She activated a series of decoy signals, sending phantom ships and false distress calls across the battlefield. The swarm split its forces, chasing shadows, leaving openings for the Union's main ships to strike. In the chaos, small acts of courage multiplied. A Lunan scout ship trapped under debris was rescued by human engineers, who piloted drones to lift the wreckage. A Tyran battleship, surrounded and outnumbered, broke free when human pilots used asteroids as cover and launched surprise attacks on the enemy. Every success inspired the next. The humans' courage became contagious. Union crews began to shout, "For Earth!" as they moved through the fire of battle. The swarm began to adapt again, sending faster, more dangerous ships into the fray. Their patterns became harder to predict. One massive vessel approached the fleet's center, moving straight toward the command ships. Admiral Kaelrin barked orders, but even he knew conventional tactics would fail. Mira studied the situation. "We need a distraction," she said. "Something they won't expect." Ramirez looked up. "We have some old asteroid mining drones, small, fast, and almost invisible. They could trigger a chain reaction in the swarm's formation." Mira smiled. "Exactly." With a small team, human pilots piloted the drones, weaving through the swarm undetected. They triggered explosions in the enemy lines, causing chaos. Ships collided, weapons malfunctioned, and the once organized swarm faltered. "Now," Mira shouted. "All units push forward." The fleet surged, taking advantage of the confusion. Plasma beams, missiles, and energy pulses struck the enemy from every direction. The swarm was forced to retreat from its center, breaking apart under the combined attack, but the battle was far from over. The swarm regrouped at the edge of the Neris belt, stronger than before. Mira realized that this would be a long fight. "We can't just react," she told Kale. "We have to anticipate. We need to think like them, and then do something they can't predict." She gathered her pilots. "We're going to split into smaller units," she explained. "You'll create multiple false attacks, draw their forces apart, and then hit their main vessel from behind. Trust each other, stay calm. Move as one." The humans executed the plan flawlessly. They darted in and out of the swarm, drawing attention and then vanishing. Union ships followed, learning to move unpredictably. Every attack, every maneuver was like a carefully choreographed dance. Hours passed. Stars were lit with bursts of light as ships collided and exploded. The humans' endurance amazed the Union. No fatigue, no panic, and only focus and cooperation. Finally, they reached the heart of the swarm. A massive ship, larger than any the Union had seen, loomed ahead. Its surface shimmered with energy shields that adapted to every strike. Mira took a deep breath. "We've come this far. We finished this together." She piloted the Valiant forward, weaving through fire and energy. Her engineers guided smaller drones to attack weak points in the shields. The Union fleet followed suit, striking with precision inspired by human courage and ingenuity. The battle raged, but slowly the swarm's energy shields began to falter. A coordinated attack from multiple directions broke the outer defenses. With one final surge, Mira led a direct assault on the core. She fired a concentrated pulse of energy, enhanced by the humans' improvised technology. The core shuddered, sparks flying across its surface. Then, with a silent, brilliant flash, it collapsed inward, consuming the massive ship in a bright explosion. Silence followed. The Union fleet floated among the wreckage, scanning the stars. The swarm was broken. Its organized power had been shattered, leaving only scattered remnants. The battle had ended, and for the first time in decades the galaxy breathed freely. Admiral Kaelrin Voss turned to Mira. "You and your people, you've done what no one else could. You've inspired the entire Union. You've shown us that courage and creativity can overcome any enemy." Mira smiled faintly. "We didn't do it alone. Every species here fought with heart. Humans just reminded everyone what it means to believe." Lawton Harris laughed, tired but proud. "We're just the spark. You all are the fire." Across the galaxy, messages began arriving. Planets once lost sent greetings of thanks. Colonies celebrated the new heroes. Statues and murals were built, depicting humans and aliens standing side by side against impossible odds. Even the youngest children learned of this day. Teachers told them the story of humans who had returned from myth to save the galaxy. Parents told their children, "Hope is never lost. Courage can come from anyone, even those once thought forgotten." Mira walked among her crew later, observing the celebration on the bridge. Engineers repaired ships. Pilots laughed. Every face held pride, relief, and wonder. Somewhere deep inside her, Mira thought of Earth, long gone from their immediate view, but never forgotten. The blue skies, the green forest, the laughter, the small victories, everything that had made humans who they were. She felt that spirit alive in every human here and even in their allies. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. Fear could be defeated, but only if courage burned brighter. Unity was stronger than division. And hope, fragile, quiet hope, could ignite a light so bright that even the darkest shadows would flee. The children of Earth were no longer myths. They were real, and they had returned to remind the galaxy that it could stand, fight, and rise again. The galaxy was quiet again, but it was a quiet unlike any before. Stars twinkled softly across the black void, and in that silence, the creatures of the Galactic Union felt a sense of awe. Systems that had feared the Valar swarm now thrived. Worlds that had lost hope now celebrated, and everywhere, the story of the humans, the children of Earth, spread like starlight. Captain Mira Jensen stood on the deck of the UHS Valiant, looking at the display of the surrounding fleets. Ships of countless species moved in formation, repairing damage, sharing supplies, and greeting each other. For the first time in decades, there was no panic, no fear, only cooperation and pride. "Quiet," Mira said, her voice soft. "Too quiet. But maybe that's good." Harris laughed beside her. "Quiet before the party starts, Captain. Or the next swarm comes." Mira shook her head with a smile. "I hope it's the party." The Union fleet had begun traveling to the sectors most affected by the Valar attacks. They repaired colonies, restored communication networks, and helped rebuild cities. The humans were at the center of every effort, not as rulers, but as teachers, builders, and protectors. Admiral Kelren Voss marveled at the impact of humanity. "I've seen courage before," he said to Mira during a council meeting. "I've seen loyalty, discipline, and skill. But what your people bring, it's different. It inspires belief," Mira nodded. "Belief is stronger than fear, Admiral. When people believe in themselves and each other, they can do anything." Across the galaxy, her words were more than philosophy. They were reality. Children practiced drills and simulations with human instructors, learning skills once thought impossible. Engineers applied human techniques to repair and improve their own technology. Soldiers and pilots adopted improvisation, creativity, and courage as part of their routine. Humanity was spreading not only hope, but a new way of thinking. On the planet Virelion Prime, the citizens had built a memorial for the fallen and celebrated the heroes of the Battle of Silent Stars. Statues of humans and aliens stood side by side, holding hands, raising their eyes to the stars. Holographic displays narrated the story of how humans, thought to be myths, had arrived in the darkest hour and turned despair into hope. Mira walked through the memorial with her crew. Engineers, pilots, and officers joined her, all sharing smiles and quiet laughter. "You know," said Ramirez, "I never thought I'd see a day when humans were considered heroes outside Earth." Mira chuckled softly. "I didn't think it would take this long for people to remember what courage looks like." A child tugged at her sleeve. "Are you really from Earth?" he asked wide-eyed. Mira crouched to meet his gaze. "Yes," she said gently. "And one day maybe you'll visit it too. Remember, Earth gave humanity its first courage. We just carried it to the stars." The child nodded solemnly, as if understanding more than his years could explain. Not everyone had been part of the final battle, but all who heard of it were changed. Across the Union, the human story became a symbol of hope. Every species, in their own way, began to honor the children of Earth. Songs were sung in their languages. Poems were written. Art and literature flourished with the memory of the humans' courage. Even Admiral Kelren felt a personal shift. He had spent decades studying strategy, predicting enemy moves and calculating risks, but the humans taught him that there were things strategy could never account for: adaptability, imagination, and heart. He found himself smiling more often. When he walked among his officers, he noticed them doing the same. The galaxy was waking up, and the spark that had returned was humanity. Despite the victories, Mira knew that the galaxy would always face challenges. There would be new threats, new enemies, and new storms. But humanity's presence had shown everyone a vital truth. The galaxy was never truly helpless. In her quarters aboard the Valiant, Mira reviewed reports from multiple sectors. Messages of thanks, invitations to visit planets, and requests for assistance filled her communications panel. She smiled as she read them all, realizing how far they had come. Harris appeared at the door. "Captain, Admiral Kale wants you on the bridge. Says he has a surprise." Mira raised an eyebrow. "A surprise? I hope it's not another swarm." Harris laughed. "Not this time. He says it's good news. Really good." On the bridge, the view was breathtaking. Dozens of fleets were assembled in a ceremonial formation, representing every species of the Union. Their ships gleamed in the starlight, side by side with human vessels. Holographic banners floated above, displaying symbols of unity and courage. Admiral Kyle stepped forward. "Captain Jensen, crew of the UHS Valiant, we are gathered here to honor the children of Earth. You arrived when we had lost hope, and you reminded us all what courage can do. Today you are no longer myths. You are heroes, and your story will be told for generations." Mira felt a warmth in her chest, not from pride, but from the realization that the work of hope and courage could outshine even the darkest fears. The bridge crew erupted in applause. Humans and aliens alike cheered, some wiping tears from their eyes. For once, victory was not just about battle. It was about belief. Mira looked out at the stars and remembered Earth, the long-lost blue planet, the home that had shaped her people. For centuries, humanity had lived quietly, scattered across hidden worlds. Yet now they had returned not to conquer, but to protect, to inspire, to remind the galaxy of something vital. Courage and unity could overcome any darkness. She whispered softly, "Earth gave us our beginning, but the galaxy gave us our purpose." Across the stars, news of humanity's deeds traveled faster than light. Colonies that had given up hope rebuilt. Ships that had once drifted aimlessly returned to service. The galaxy's youngest citizens learned to dream again. Everywhere the story spread. Earth's children were myth, until they came to fight beside us. It became a saying not just of courage, but of belief, unity, and perseverance. The humans themselves never sought glory. They repaired what was broken, guided those who faltered, and moved quietly among allies. To them, victory was measured not in battles won, but in lives saved and hope restored. When the fleets returned to Union space, Mira addressed her crew. "We didn't come to prove myths true. We came to remind the galaxy that hope can never die, that courage is stronger than fear, and that unity can overcome even the greatest darkness." Her crew nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. In the months that followed, the Galactic Union flourished. Trade routes reopened, colonies thrived, and research expanded. Humans shared knowledge, but more importantly, they shared an example that inspired every species to dream bigger, fight harder, and believe in themselves. Every star, every planet, every child in the Union learned that myths could return to life, and that sometimes heroes were not just legends, but real beings standing among them. Captain Mira Jensen and her crew stood among allies in a quiet moment aboard the Valiant, looking out at the vastness of space. Mira thought about Earth, about the people they had once been, and the legacy they now carried across the stars. She smiled softly. "We've done more than survive," she said. "We've reminded the galaxy what it means to hope." And somewhere far away, the stars seemed to shimmer in agreement. The children of Earth had returned. The myths were real, and the galaxy would never forget their courage.